Co-founder of Hue and Grace. Happy Earth Day. Today we have a really fun lineup. I'll be talking to my sister, Michelle Bird, who was our surrogate. I'll be talking to her right now. And then later today, we'll also be talking to Rachel Zoe and Tracy Anderson. Rachel is an iconic stylist. She's also on our board member she's our strategic advisor. And then also we have later tonight, Dr. Boyana. So she's on the board of Environmental Working Group, and we'll be doing a live with her at 4:30 today. I am bringing Michelle on. Fun to see Melissa and Jessica. I have 4 sisters and a brother. But hi!
Hi!
Happy Earth Day!
Happy Earth Day to you and everybody.
I know, this is fun. I've been doing, for National Infertility Awareness Week, as you know, been doing lots of different Insta Lives all week, and this is more fun to have someone who I've known my whole life.
Yes, and I have my nice world map behind me to represent Earth Day, I guess.
No, that's fantastic. So this week we've been talking about fertility awareness, and would love to hear from you, just because my infertility really impacted your life, and hear about your experience, how you felt, how you even came to this decision. This is not something I asked you to do. It's something actually you approached me about, and I want to hear kind of what, and then also what fertility means to you and fertility awareness.
Well, I think family is so important and everything to a lot of people. And I think infertility is something I really don't love the stigma behind infertility, the shame that women feel behind it, the secrecy that's behind it. So when Sarah, you finally opened up about your infertility, even though you had been silent for years and years and years about it, it really struck a chord with me. Like, how can I help her through this? And I remember when you told me about that your first surrogate was pregnant with Hugh, and I just remember thinking, this is something that's going to be part of my life. And we're so lucky that he was here. And then when I found out that you had more embryos, I thought, well, let's try and give little Hugh a sibling. So it was a very long decision-making process. It was something that my husband and I thought about and talked about for years before that was something we could commit to. And
before you even told me.
Before I even told you. Yeah, I knew I couldn't dangle that carrot, if you will. You know, I didn't want to be like, we're thinking about doing this, and then have to change our mind and go back on that. So we made sure it was a 100% yes. We talked to our kids a lot about it. And once we knew it was something we could do, we called you and told you. And it's actually interesting. I have a little journal I write down every day. It was April 7th that we called and told you. And then we had Grace April 9th, 1 year and 2 days later is when the day she was born. So it was kind of fun. And I like to say infertility is a family affair. I mean, it's just everybody wants for everybody to be happy and fulfill their dream and their passion, no matter what that is. So I know for you, it was to have a family. And so it was just a little way I could step in and help.
More than a little way.
Well,
I think you were actually, so my sister-in-law, Jenna, was our first surrogate. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I would call you a lot and tell you the struggles she was having, and tell you how difficult it was, tell you the highs and lows. And so you really had this, I think, more of a knowing what you're getting yourself into, kind of, but just because we had done it with you, and you were the fact that even seeing the highs and or hearing about the highs and lows, and still volunteering to do this.
It was helpful for me to hear your highs and lows, because I knew what your triggers were. I knew what it was hard for you to hear. And it made sense, the things that were hard for you to hear, or the things that you enjoyed hearing, or the comments that people would make to you. It was helpful for me to hear that experience before. Yours and Jenna's relationship was completely different than yours and mine relationship. But it was still very helpful to kind of walk that road with you with Jenna, and then do that with you the second time.
Which is amazing. And also, I'd like for you to talk about your kids, because you have 3 kids and a husband, and realizing that this was not just your decision. This is something that impacted everybody. Well,
yes. And ultimately, it was, I say it was my husband's and my decision, ultimately. And then it was nice to get the kids' input. But if my 6-year-old said no, I'd have been like, okay, that's nice. We would have we probably would have gone forward with it anyway. But I wrote my little journal when I talked to my kids about it. I asked Austin, who was 6 or 7 at the time, I said, Aunt Sarah's body can't grow a baby. So what would your thoughts be if we take Aunt Sarah's little tiny baby that's in a microscope, and we put it inside mom's body, and mom's body grows it, but then it's ultimately Aunt Sarah and Uncle Ben's baby. And without hesitation, he said, Mom, it's bestest to be nicest. So we got to be nice. We have to
gotta be nice. Gotta share my body for the next. Well, it wasn't even just the 9 months. I want you to talk about the process even leading into it. And let me first brag about you that Michelle had just done an Ironman and placed 3rd place. You're badass. And so you are super fit, and you were. But it was. We'll talk about kind of the process. And also, I think it's interesting when people ask me, did your sister have kids? So to be a surrogate, you actually have to have kids. And you have to show your medical records that you can deliver healthy babies, that you can carry to full term, that your body's well suited to carry a baby.
Right. So the very, very, very first step that we had to go through was a psych evaluation. Remember that? The psychologist, a surrogacy psychologist had to call myself and interview me, and then my husband and I together. And then we conferenced in Sarah and Ben, and we talked about all the horrific what ifs. What if I'm in a car accident and I'm in a coma? What do we do with the child? What if Dave and I get divorced during this process? What happens, what if Sarah and Ben get divorced during this process? What happens to this child? There's a million what if scenarios you have to go through.
Or if we die during the process.
Right. So there's a million what ifs. That was the very first step. And the next step was all the medical. I had to get you had to have had delivered a child before. So I had to get all my medical records sent over to Sarah's doctor, and then I had to fly to California and get all of my stuff checked out. And I received the most random compliment that I apparently have a beautiful uterus. That's what Dr. Suri told me. So I've never been told that one before. Never again and never since. So apparently my uterus was in prime condition. And even though I'd had 3 children and I was 38, so it was, so that was the beginning of the process. And then we were originally going to push it back a little bit, but then we decided let's just do this. So then our other sister was visiting me in Oklahoma when I got my box of meds, and it was it was intense. Every day at the same time, you have to take this pill. And I think I wrote it all down. At one point I was taking 9 pills a day, 2 vaginal inserts, an injection in my butt, and just to prep my body. It's amazing what science has figured out and what we are able to do in this day and age. It's incredible.
And incredible you've offered to do this, because I've never been pregnant, but my hormones were a mess during all my fertility treatments, and your mood, just the mood swings, and you feeling sick. How about you talk about kind of your physical and your mental experience during that?
With all my own pregnancies, I was sicker with each progressive pregnancy and longer. So with my baby, Austin, I was sick for 20 weeks. And so, but with Gracie girl, I was physically way more sick, but mentally I kind of enjoyed it, only because I thought, okay, good, I'm still pregnant. I was sick until the day I delivered. But like I said,
you were throwing up on the way to the hospital.
But I was glad. I mean, it just mentally was okay, good. Things are still going well. My body is still growing this baby. So it was the pregnancy was physically more demanding than I thought. The recovery was more emotionally demanding than I thought. Just trying to find that balance of my body recognize.
I want to talk more about that, because a lot of people, I have friends who hired surrogates. You're amazing that you volunteer, but people say, wow, it's your sister. Grace will be in her life forever. I can't imagine giving birth to a baby and giving it away. Mm-hmm. So I would love for you to tell me, I've never given birth, but it was such a gift of love. I'd like for you to talk about your experience after.
Okay, wait, are we going to ask if people have questions? Do you want to ask if people have questions?
If people want to ask questions, please feel free to comment. Cute to know.
Cute to know. I love you. That's that sweet baby.
Yes, if anybody has any questions during this, please feel free to just write it in the comment box and we'll get to it. But yeah, how was it for you?
So I think,
Because I think that's probably one that, like, obviously your body going through this amazing process was a huge gift, but I don't know what was more difficult for you, the actual physical sickness or the afterwards.
the emotional part. Yes, I was not prepared emotionally. I had joined like Facebook surrogacy groups, and I had talked to Jenna, your first surrogate, and I think our situation was just so different and so unique in the sense that you and I were so close growing up, and then it was your struggle with infertility and me having kids that kind of like, drove us apart for years because you couldn't have kids and I wasn't aware of your struggle, and I understand that you weren't open with it. So that kind of drove us apart. But then this experience brought us back together. And after I gave birth to Grace, like my body, like my arms like physically like ached to like hold a baby. I just think it's my heart and my head were like not on the same page. Like my heart understood like, oh, this isn't my baby. It never was my baby. No offense, I don't want to raise another baby. But my head was like, the hormones were like, no, you just gave birth and your milk's coming in and all the crazy shift of hormones. And so I wish I could have convinced my head and my heart to be on the same page better. And somebody said something so stupid to me. It was actually on like a comment on the blog post or something about like, oh, when Michelle sees Grace, is Grace gonna call her Aunt Mommy? And I was like, that is like the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I'm obviously not Grace's mother. I love the connection that I have with Grace, but it's at first when she was first born, it was hard for me to just like decipher where my love for her as a aunt stopped and as a surrogate started, but now it just feels like so normal and natural. I was able to fly out to California 2 weeks ago to celebrate Grace's second birthday, which is so crazy, and be with Sarah and Ben and Grace. And it just feels like she's just a really, really special little niece to me, but I don't have those emotional, like my heart doesn't like ache like it used to, because I feel like all the hormones have leveled out. And I love the baby stage. Like I love to snuggle babies, and 2-year-olds are a different ballgame. They don't want to snuggle you,
No, she barely kiss us. So.
I love her. She did give me some good kisses. But it's just it's a special bond I have with her, but not emotionally taxing or emotionally draining like it was those first couple of months. And I think once the hormones leveled out, it was a lot easier.
So you live in Oklahoma. I live in Los Angeles. In Oakland. So surrogacy is not legal in most states. Some states it's expressly illegal. Other states it's not legal, meaning there's just not a legal framework. California is legal, but you have to jump through all these hoops and have all these really complicated steps. We flew you to LA for the transfer, for the implantation, but then we went out to Oklahoma for the birth and arranged with attorneys there. What do people think in Oklahoma? Like, were you the first surrogate they'd met? What was their perception? How they react?
Yeah, for a lot of people, I was the first surrogate that they had ever met. And it was kind of fun. Like I was just remembering this morning, I was driving home from a doctor's appointment and I saw a neighbor and we're friends, like friendly. And I pulled over and said hi to her, and she saw my ultrasound pictures in my lap. And she's like, oh my gosh. And I said, yeah, this is my niece. And she's like, oh, okay. I was like, no, my niece is in my body. And she's like, what? She was like, blown away. So I think, and one time we were traveling and we were at In-N-Out Burger, and my friend said to somebody, oh, she's carrying her niece. This is a surrogate. And he like stared at me. He's like, I've never seen a surrogate before. And I was like, oh, well, now you have. For the most part, people were very, very supportive. And, it's like very humbling for me to have people tell me, oh, you're so amazing, because I feel very humbled to be a part of the process. It's like hard for me to hear those like compliments sometimes, but it just not hard, just uncomfortable. It makes me feel like, ooh. But people were it's a very, church is a big thing here, and everybody was very supportive. And I feel very blessed that people were so like my sweet friends would bring me dinner. People would drop off treats and snacks and my best friend here came to every single doctor's appointment with me. She was in the delivery room with me. So, well, all of us, it was quite the party. We can talk about that later if you want. But it was, I feel very lucky that people were so good to me.
I do too. Not being able to be there. I mean, our
Mhm.
sweet. So I'm the oldest of six. I'm number one. Michelle's number two in order, and we have our youngest sister Jessica, who lives in Oklahoma, close to you, and she
Mhm.
would cook you dinners once a week.
Every week, sweet Jess would bring
And
me dinner.
and it was amazing to me. Like I felt so loved from what people were doing for you,
Mhm. Mhm.
and because we flew out for the 20-week appointment. We'd come out when we could, but it wasn't something where I couldn't go to all your doctor's appointments and we'd
Right?
FaceTime. But it just should for me to know that so many people were taking care of you because of something you were doing for me was incredibly touching.
Yeah. Good people.
I want you to talk about some of the funny things with you and Dave, like getting insurance, getting.
Oh my
I'd
gosh.
love to hear his perspective also on this because, yeah.
Um, so my favorite story is we were meeting with our financial advisor and we were talking about like he asked us like, do you want to save for your kids' colleges? And we're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Like all these grown-up conversations. And so I was like, okay, how many kids do you have? I'm like, well, we have the three. And I was very visibly pregnant at this point. He kept like, okay, Audrey's this old and you have these three kids. And then he like kept looking at my belly and Dave like put his hand on my belly. He's like, we're not going to save for this baby's college. And he's like, okay. And Dave's like, this baby's not mine. And he's like, okay. And he was, it's my brother-in-law's. Just the shock value of telling people that. I mean, it like never got old. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun. And Dave's reaction, I mean, I tried really, really hard to not ever pull the pregnancy card, if you will. Like when I didn't feel good, I just kind of like if it was our child, I'd been like, babe, get out of bed and turn off the lights. Like, but whereas with Grace, I was like, okay, I'll like get out of bed and turn off the lights, or I'll try really hard. I'm so grateful for Jess for bringing food because we'd like just stretch that out through a couple of days. Or whereas I would try very hard to not complain and make it just. I tried very hard to make my husband's life and my kids' life as normal as possible with some perks. Like Sarah and Ben were really sweet and they sent me a credit card. So once a week, I take one child out. We called it a baby mama date, and we would go get a treat. Just one week was Audrey, the next week Joshua, the next week Austin. Just go get a $5 ice cream cone and on Sarah and Ben's credit card and be like, thanks, Aunt Sarah and Uncle Ben for this ice cream cone. I tried to make it like there were some perks for them. And Sarah and Ben sent us on an amazing trip afterwards. And my kids are like, can you be a surrogate again so we can go back to Harry Potter world? I was like, really?
There are easier ways to go to Harry
Let's
Potter
just go
World.
to Harry Potter world again. So yeah, it was a really good experience for all of us, and it taught my children the importance of family and the lengths that people are willing to go through to have a family. And um, it was a uniquely bonding time for us. And um, I remember like thinking about Jenna being pregnant with somebody else's child and being like, I wonder how that affects her relationship with her husband. And then when it was me, it was like really endearing and really sweet to see Dave be so sweet. And so like, he was very good. Like, how are you feeling? And like, you try to help. And I would try to just be like, two thumbs up, just try and work through it. But it was a bonding experience for sure.
Uh, and for us, we saw you 2 weeks ago. We saw Jenna, our first surrogate, and it's been so sweet whenever we see Dave. Like Hugh just adores Dave, and Grace does too, but Grace is too young to know anything. But we always call you Special Aunt Michelle and Special Aunt Jenna, and Jenna kind of talks about Hugh. Like she's like, I feel like he's like my grandchild. And she's younger than I am and not old enough. But she's like, I just have that special bond. But she's like, I get to
Yes.
play with him and I get to love on him, and then you take care of him and you get to
Yep.
raise him and be
Yes.
up in the middle of the night with him.
And it was fun to see Grace. She's so beautiful. And I remember just like looking at her lips 2 weeks ago and being like, I remember like when we would do ultrasounds and her beautiful lips. Like I remember like seeing her lips on the ultrasound and then like seeing them in real life and just being like, Dave called when I was in California. He's like, how are you feeling? And I was like, honestly, it's very humbling. It's very humbling to know the role that we played in her life in bringing,
Well, you created her. She wouldn't be here without you.
well, you created her. I just grew her.
you we created her.
You and Ben created her, and I grew her. We make a great team. It's a team effort, but um, yeah, I feel like to be able to give that gift it's it makes me feel overwhelmingly grateful and very, very humbled that I could do that.
We thank you. I can't say
No,
thank you enough.
my
I would
pleasure.
love for, so we're talking, we come from a big family. When
Mhm.
Michelle called me and offered to be a surrogate, she had a few different, not rules, but things that she
Stipulations.
yeah, stipulations. Do you want to talk about this?
I remember I wasn't willing to pump because I make so much breast milk and I was like, I can't. Like and you live in California and
No,
I'm in Oklahoma,
but
it's
the
okay.
important one, the important
Yeah.
stipulation.
The important stipulation was I wanted every member of our family to be in the delivery room.
And there are 5 girls and 1 boy, and not including our parents.
Great. And then our
And
parents
my
and my
husband.
husband.
And
Uh-huh.
your husband.
And yeah, both of our husbands. And then at the end, I wanted Chrissy there, my friend Chrissy, because she was so supportive and so amazing through it all. So Sarah and Ben were like, okay, weirdo. You were like, but for me, like I said, this, infertility is a family affair. And this was something. Sweet Jess brought me dinner every single week, and our other sister Rachel would mail me things, and Melissa would call and ask how I was doing. And I felt like it was like the end of a very long road for all of us. And I wanted everybody to witness. I had delivered 3 of my own baby support. I knew that incredible experience. And Sarah's first surrogate was a C-section, which is a completely different experience as
Scheduled
far as
C-section.
a
So,
scheduled C-section. Yeah. So I knew what that experience was like giving birth, and I wanted as many people to witness that as possible. It exceeded all my expectations how it actually happened. I mean, it was just the most amazing, amazing day. But we had to get special permission from the nurses and the doctors, and um, it was amazing. The love was like tangible. Like it was like this little tiny slice of heaven. And it was really cute to see Sarah and Ben, who were like, I mean, I labor for a long time, and they're like, what is going on? We're used to it. We just want this baby in our arms, And
are
I'm
you
like,
done yet?
I know.
Hey,
Please
please
give
hurry
me
up.
two. I know. And I was like, I'm just so hungry. I was so hungry.
And I think that day was actually because I knew you were sick, and I would see you a few times throughout the pregnancy and see you throw up. But to see you in a hospital bed and to be I mean, thankfully, an epidural, but to see you in that much pain and to know that you were doing that because it should have been me. I should be the one in pain, not you should be the person in pain. So like it was so that it was so hard and emotional for so many reasons, but to know that you were doing that because of your love for us.
Well, you had already suffered through so much pain. You had already gone through so much physical and emotional pain that, so I don't ever want you to feel like that should have been you in pain. You'd already suffered so much. Like it was just something, I knew what I was signing up for. I knew what I was getting into, which is why I think they make you have a baby before you can be a surrogate. But, and when I look back on that day, I don't ever think of the labor pains. I think of the incredible amount of love and the Sarah, just seeing that picture on Human Grace's Instagram of like you laying in that bed next to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I had forgotten that. It's just like all those tender, sweet. Our sister Rachel like massaged my feet all day long. Just like, and my mom would like
Melissa
stroke my
held your hand
hair.
while you got an epidural because I couldn't watch.
Yeah, Sarah's like epidural needle, I'm out. So Melissa stepped in, and I'm like, you're not during the epidural. It was a really, really, really sweet experience.
To see, and Jessica got a son. So we named our daughter Grace Michelle. So Michelle is obviously after Michelle Hugh. But we were very thoughtful about naming. Like we feel like names are very meaningful. And the name Grace means goodness, generosity, and love. But it was also because Michelle's gift of grace gave us grace. And so Jessica had a sign that said Grace. Mom had brought flowers and brought a sign that says Grace conquers all.
Grace always wins.
Grace always wins. I said Hugh won't really like that.
Yeah.
In the future, but it was great for that day.
Yeah. Yep, sweet baby Grace. That's a sign that Jess made, and it was fun to see that on the wall when I was in labor. Great day.
to have even our brother there, to have, it was just, and also it was, you know, most of our family lives in California, either Northern California, you know, so for everyone to go and fly in and take the time, we did a weekend. So Michelle, when she flew up for my baby shower. So we had to, we're explaining. So baby was, the transfer was in California, but we were living in Oklahoma. And so Michelle, for our baby shower, gave us this onesie that said California made, Oklahoma grown. Right?
Yep.
I'm getting that words right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And so when we went to Oklahoma before it was a scheduled induction.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes, scheduled induction. So we knew the day that we would come. And so the whole family flew in early. And I was trying to do research and say, okay, what is the connection between California and Oklahoma? And learned that the original Santa Monica Pier Ferris wheel was actually sold and put up in Oklahoma City. So we did that as a family together. But I felt like that weekend was probably one of the best bonding weekends of our whole family, because we really talked about how we felt and what sacrifice, and how also your pregnancy had impacted everyone. You know, it wasn't like you doing this wasn't just even you and your immediate family. It impacted our entire family.
It was a really, really incredible weekend. And Sarah like rented like this riverboat experience. So she's like, I want everybody to learn about Oklahoma and where Grace was grown, you know, and it was just and everybody was there. I do want to clarify, my dad and my brother and Ben were by my head during the delivery. They were not. Sweet Ben was holding this hand, and my husband's holding this hand, and my sisters were holding my legs, and my dad was way back here. So, but yeah, it was a really, really bonding weekend. Our mom always says like, it was like one of the highlights of my life, you know, just to see all of our kids together, and in such a unique, interesting way, you know, that
you would never ever imagine. I know Ben was actually really nervous to have the entire family there. He's like, this is but afterwards, and it's interesting, I wish you were but when he talks about the story about giving birth, he's like, you know, I was apprehensive to have the entire family in there for the delivery room. He's like, then you had he's like different sisters, mom saying, push Michelle, you can do this, and just everyone was so involved and just showing love for all of us. It was just such a special day.
It really was. It really was. And then when she was finally born and they put her on my belly, you know, and they're wiping her down, and they have Ben like cut the umbilical cord. I have like a few moments of my life where it's like a slow motion moment, like what I call it. And Ben cutting Grace's umbilical cord was one of those slow motion moments where it's like, I will remember it forever. And I remember thinking like, my job is done. Like now, like I grew this baby. Now this baby I turn it over back to their original, their parents, you know, who created this child. And it was really sweet to watch you and Ben hold her for the first time, and then bring her over to meet me for the first time. And luckily we had so many camera phones going on, and all the pictures were on the live options, so I can like watch them all, you know. And it was a really, it was so sweet to watch you and Ben with her for the first time.
It was incredible. We actually wrote a lot of the stuff down to remember it, because when you think about it, it's magical. And the fact that we can do this, and it's such a miracle. I've had a lot of people ask me about surrogacy, if they can't get pregnant, and how it impacts them. And I think emotionally for me, I was very emotional that day, because we completed our family. We had Grace. I was worried about, you know, you and your family and your kids, but then also I think just the trust also I had for you, knowing that you, like, you know, when you hire a surrogate, it's very scary, because you don't know what they're eating or what they're drinking, or if they're taking all their medications or supplements. And I remember Grace was doing well most of the pregnancy, and then at the very end, her weight was dropping. Remember this?
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, you called me and you said, I went to the doctor's office and she was 10th percentile. And they said, we're going to have to start going in and running all these tests. And I just remember thinking, I know that, because had I been, you know, had I had to hire somebody, I would have been like second guessing what they were eating. Are they doing something wrong? Are they changing their lifestyle? What is it? But to have that trust and be able to trust you and know that you love this baby immensely was just so calming for me.
Oh, well, thank you. I really enjoyed eating all the food that I could eat to try and get her to gain weight. It didn't really work though. I just gained weight, not her.
what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe needing a surrogate or considering being a surrogate?
It was okay. That's a good question. So literally the week after I gave birth, I got an Instagram message from an acquaintance, and she said like her cousin was considering being a surrogate for the cousin's sister. So these two sisters, just like you and I. And she's like, but the surrogate's husband like can't get on board. Like, what advice would you give to this husband? So I asked Dave, I was like, what advice? Like, what should we say? And Dave said it perfectly. He's like, the whole situation's weird. If you can get on board with weird, you can do it. If you can't get on board with weird, don't do it. Like and it's so true. You either have to accept it for what it is, which is a weird gift of love and gift of life. And if you can get on board with that, more power to you. If that's not something that you can get on board with, then there's no fault or shame in that either. It was a rough year for our family. And when I say rough, I just mean lots of ups and downs, emotionally, physically. But at the end of the day, like Dave said it so well to somebody, he's like, yeah, it was a rough year, but at the end of the day, Sarah and Ben have a daughter and we have a niece, and my parents have a new granddaughter, and Hugh has a sibling. Like a year is nothing.
I love that. We no, your life is a journey for us. It's to see how much Hugh and Grace playing together. It's
I know, it's so cute how much he loves her. It's so cute. And you and I have always been close, like siblings. Like I feel very blessed to have such good siblings, and I would never want to deny that for Hugh.
No, and that's when you called me. You said, I want to give Hugh a sister. And because we knew we had girl embryos left.
Right. Yeah. I would have carried a boy. I love my son. Yeah. We knew it was a girl. Yeah.
No, but to that was weird. Like there is no handbook. I went through a lot of therapy. I remember feeling, especially with Jenna, because that was the first time I did it. And then also with you, but I would get feelings of jealousy of you. And there'd be some days where I was upset with you. And I'm like, and I talked to Ben about it. I'm like, I have these feelings where I'm mad at my sister, and she's my surrogate. She's doing this amazing thing for me, and she's sick. And so having to understand, like, this is something that I really wanted for myself. And to have someone else do it, sometimes there were just really weird emotions that I never, ever expected to feel. Mm-hmm. And then I think, like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. I'm mad or upset. But I think for me, I'm like, I need to be able to feel these feelings, work through these feelings, and then know that this is normal. I don't know, what kind of normal that is, but that it's okay to work through, and it's okay to have, to also be real and acknowledge what I'm feeling. And that therapy helped a lot. But it was interesting to have kind of those different positions.
For sure. Thoughts. And my therapist, I went to therapy the entire time, and my therapist, I would say, feel all the feels, like and don't feel guilty or shame for feeling how you feel. And you had told me a few times, like with Jenna, like how you felt, like I'm jealous and all these things. So that was really helpful for me. Like I remember, Sarah, you and I talked about, like, okay, what are things that you're jealous about? Like, how can I like help you not feel that way? So just being open and honest and talking a lot about feelings and communicating a lot was very helpful. And like I said, it like broke my heart when you would talk, like when you would apologize, like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, there's nothing to be sorry for. Like, I don't like the shame and that's behind infertility. And it's just a crappy deck of cards, whatever that phrase is, whatever that you got dealt. But I don't like that there's shame behind that. And that's why I'm so grateful for things like Infertility Awareness Week, to bring to light that this happened. This is so prevalent in so many women. And I love that you and Ben are doing these products to help try and curb that a little bit. But infertility should not be something that people are ashamed of.
No, we were talking about feelings and emotions. I remember one day I went to go because when I'm pregnant, I always envision like Ben massaging my feet and bringing me donuts at 2 a.m. because I had a craving, or going and pampering me, which he did sometimes, but it wasn't like it was so apparent. I remember I went one day and got a mani-pedi, and there was a couple next to me, and there was a man when they're both getting manicure pedicure, and the man was like rubbing the belly and like talking to her belly, and I like got up, like I had like 3 of my fingernails done, got up, walked out, sobbed the whole way home. I'm like, Ben, you're not rubbing my belly and taking me to get mani pedi. He's like, so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you rub my belly, please?
No, it's just these missed life experiences. But
Yeah.
what has happened has been so much more enriching. And I think even the catalyst for this company, for Hugh and Grace, is after having Hugh and Grace and realizing that we learned about a topic that people were not discussing, and realizing that you and your family and Jenna and her family had sacrificed so much for us to have us help our dreams. And we just said we need to in some way pay forward what was given. We're not going to give the gift of life, but if we can help create simple solutions, can't create a whole solution for this, but if we can actually make an impact, what can we do? So,
well, I love that. I love that you have taken your situation, and have found the positive, and have made lemonade from lemons, if you will.
it's fun, some days, but
well, good for you. I love my Hue and Grace products. I think what you guys are doing, I love the Better Than Clean. I think it's great. And even for my, I don't know how much research is done with infertility being genetic, but I have a daughter, and I have nieces and even nephews. I'm like, what's going to happen? So I love that there's these products that are safe for all ages, and anything I can do to help. I think infertility it's a sad thing, and anything I can do to prevent it I feel good about.
And the fact that well, first of all, you offered to be our surrogate, but that you're so open to talking about it. I think that's even sometimes more scary than doing actions.
Sometimes I share too much, I think. Open book over here.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to do this. Michelle, do you have any thing? You're fantastic. Thank you for being generous with your time. Is there something that you would like to share?
I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you and Ben, and for doing this and doing your Hue and Grace products, and enlightening the world on the little things that we can do to make us more healthy and better.
I love you.
Love you too. Kiss that girl for me, and Hugh, of course.
They are, yes. They're the best. So thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye, guys.